Good morning, everyone. Wishing you all a beautiful day. Let's continue with our exploration on sensing the breath, letting the breath breathe. Today is every day is an important day if we see the substance of our intentions and how they bring us to our goal, our efforts. And today is an important day. Let me again push the comments to the side. Yes, pranams to you, Ritesh. Today is an important day. At the very early my early practices was based on the Shivananda Yoga technique in year 2001 to, in fact, from year 2000 to 2003 and 4, I was in the methodology of Shivananda Yoga. And even till today, much of that training influences the way I teach, especially bringing in the non-dualistic teachings from the Upanishads. And fortunately, I was introduced to the book Light on Yoga, and then was inspired to look for the teacher who could guide me into knowing more of asanas and pranayama, in fact the entire holistic subject of yoga. And I found my teacher, the late Karen O'Bannon, in 2004 or 5. I met her in Rishikesh and then continued studying with her and her guidance, and her methodology of teaching brought a lot of interpretation to me. I started thinking a lot about what I already knew as a stepping stone. I started building up from there, and then I got a chance to meet Guruji BKS Iyengar, and then had a chance to learn from many of his students, also from that environment in Pune. And today is the day where he left his physical body on the 20th of August 2014. He had left his physical body. I still remember the day when I got the news from some of my friends that he had he had given up his body. There was definitely a lot of sadness in me, but also I did not feel that he had left. I think Guruji had lived a lot of his work and left a lot of his work with his students, with the community, in fact with in his books, and he continues to live with most of us who were inspired by his image, or who was inspired by the methodology of teaching, who was inspired by his aspirations of how he found his life. If you would like to know more about it, you can see there is a movie made, The Leap of Faith. I think it's on YouTube. You can see this movie about Guruji. So today's class is an offering to that part, that inspiration, which was a part of my life. So I offer, in fact I should offer all my teachings to him, but today is a special teaching. We are going to go into the practice of Brahmari, because that's one of the practices that I had a chance. That was actually one of the first pranayama that I learned with my Iyengar yoga teacher, Karen O'Bannon. So I'm offering that back to Guruji, and offering back to the Gurujis inside all of us. Let me give a Dhyana Shloka. Something's in my throat today. Dhyana Shloka to Guruji. अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। Let us begin this exploration by sensing the climate or the weather of the body, like we've been doing in all the previous videos. I'm in a seated position, I'm on my bed. You could be in any position that you are and having a sense of acceptance of where you are without making too many changes. But if there is a change which is required, feel free to change from that position, but also know that there's going to be more changes that's going to come. So being available, so trying to develop a sense of awareness of being available to all the variables as changes. I'm going to start by placing my hands on my knees, resting back against the pillow. And sensing my legs. I have my left leg crossed in front of the right. How is your legs? The positioning of your legs. Not in a way that we're going to change the positioning, but becoming aware of the toes, the ankles, the knees and the thighs, and how the top of both sides of the legs then connect to the hips. From there, feeling the pelvic floor, sensing the pelvic cavity, then moving into the abdominal region, and then into the thoracic cavity, from there into the shoulders, and then into the upper arms of the right and the left arm, into the elbows, and sensing the forearm, the wrist, the palms and the fingers. From there, if we could move into the neck, the base of the neck, and then into the superior part of the neck, just close to the base of the head, the skull. Then into the jaw, sensing the front of the head, the top. We go to the back of the head. Now see if you can sense the entire body. Not really in a particular form or a shape, just feeling any part of the body or the entire body, but not looking for the body to give you anything in particular, not to present anything in particular, but just the sense of feeling the body in itself. From there, let's slowly open our eyes. So, what I just said just now was, at times our mind tends to superimpose a particular idea or a sensation we are looking for, that my body is in this shape. For instance, if we look at an apple, you're going to think, this is sweet because of the outer layer, the outer form. It's red in color, it looks glossy, or this has a lot of chemical in it, this doesn't have. So we have, this is sour or sweet. There's a perception. We're free to perceive. But what if we can have variables of perceptions and not really perceive anything, but just looking at the form and trying to allow the form to provide the information, rather than already having a preconceived idea about that form and forcing that idea to remain in the mind and projecting that idea into the form. I hope I make some sense. So at times we have many layers of preconceived idea, that when we look at a form, then the sensation comes from that form, and then we label that sensation, and that sensation becomes our memory, and that becomes our awareness, and then we start transacting with the world in that way. So see if we can loosen that process or that collaboration. It brings some form of innocence, that every day when we sit for our meditation, or when we sit for our pranayama, or when we sit for our asana practice, if we can have some amount of innocence, that when I arrive there on my yoga mat, or with or without a yoga mat to practice, can I have some form of innocence, so that I'm not labeling that I have to practice in a particular way to feel in a particular manner. So we're making an appointment that I'm going to feel like this. This is what I want to feel, because of that labeling of the sensation, which is the memory which is coming from the back of our head. Can I just be available, just stand there and be available and embrace what is going to happen? So much of this pranayama work is about being there and allowing everything to happen in front without labeling, identifying with the forms, shapes, and then creating sensations and making those sensations, dividing the sensations into likes and dislikes, and then bringing further more input into the brains. So the idea is to be free, trying to, or cultivating that such awareness. Now from here, let's go into the practice of Brahmari. I would like to take the Pranava mantra Om. We start chanting the Pranava mantra Om a few rounds, and the last akshara, the syllable, that is where we're going to amplify. We're amplifying that part, and that last part in the Om, that we're going to pay attention to that humming, and that is going to take over and become our Brahmari. And that's going to lead us into Brahmari. So from the Pranava mantra Om, we are amplifying just the Akshara there, and then that becomes our Brahmari. So we're going to do a few rounds, at least 3 rounds of the Pranava mantra Om itself. So fairly sitting tall, keeping the head above the shoulders relaxed. And also I'm sensing a little bit of an imbalance. I'm slightly sitting on the left rather than sitting slightly more to the center. I'm sensing that because I'm on the bed, I'm going to be tilting slightly to the left side. So let's exhale completely and empty the lungs. And from there, inhale. We'll take our first cycle of the Om mantra. A few recovery cycles before we go to the second cycle. How did the first cycle feel? Now in the second cycle, can we amplify the not by volume but by length? Try to make the sound slightly longer than the O. The second cycle, exhale completely to empty the lungs. Breathe in. A few recovery cycles, which are normal breathing. The third cycle, exhale completely to empty the lungs. Inhale. And slowly open your eyes. So we've done 3 rounds of the Pranava mantra Om. Let's do another 3 more cycles of the Pranava mantra Om, and this time there are 2 parts to this, two points to this, which is point number 1 is, as we are doing Om, let's try to make the O, the duration of the O shorter and the longer. And the second pointer is, maybe try not to make the volume of the humming in the part where you're saying too loud, or rather have an acceptance that this is the last syllable. As you go Om, it's going to disappear or evaporate into that space. So if that could be a sense of acceptance, not trying to fight to make the louder and stronger, but have a sense of letting go of the and allowing it to kind of disappear into that cellular space within the body, and maybe even having a sense that letting the cells take over. In the embryonic stage, when we are all that little embryonic form, shape and substance within the stomach or womb of our mother, we were a cell. So if you think of the whole body of this organization as a cell, can we kind of pass the into the cell and allow the cells to continue the vibration? So we're not fighting to keep with our voice, but we are passing that vibration into the cells. Let's try 3 more cycles, and this time the Om, the O is shorter, the is longer, and allowing the to disappear and go into the cellular body. Normal breathing. Fairly exhale to empty the lungs. Inhale. Understanding and allowing the to evaporate into the cells. Normal breathing. Second cycle. Inhale and fairly exhale to empty the lungs. Inhale once again. Normal breathing. Allowing the cells to take over. the third cycle. Breathe in. And breathe out to fairly empty the lungs. Breathe in. See if you can pass that humming into the cellular respiratory system. Letting the cells take over the humming. And slowly open our eyes. So in the second part of this Brahmari exploration, I had invited you to make the part longer without adding volume to it. But here the length of the is going to then start disappearing into the cellular body. So we're not holding the here in our throats, but we are passing that vibration into the cellular respiratory system. So we have the breathing respiratory system as breathing, and then we have the cellular breathing, whereas the breaking down of the oxygen going into the food and then breaking down. So you read about cellular breathing. So we are passing the breath into the cellular system, or we are passing the Pranava mantra, the end of the mantra, into the cellular and allowing the cells to vibrate. Now let's do 3 more cycles of Brahmari, and this time we're going to omit the O and take only the part. So this is like pure classical Brahmari without the O. So 3 cycles of that. And if you need to readjust yourself, prop yourself up, or even if you feel that you need to lie on your back in a supine position, feel free to do that. Let's start by normal breathing. Allowing first, let's pick up the breath from the breath itself. So we're not putting our hands or our mind or the frontal lobe of our brain into the lungs and pulling out a breath, but rather allow the breath to come to us from the inside to out. So if we can wait patiently to start. Let's start with an inhalation coming from inside of the lungs. And then a fair, complete exhalation. Breathe in. Allow the Brahmari to evaporate into the cells. Observing the effect of this round on the mind. Second cycle, breathe in. We breathe out to empty the lungs. Breathe in. The final cycle, breathe in. As we breathe out, fairly empty the lungs. Breathe in. Now, if we can observe the effect of the practice on the body by observing the body, the effect of the practice on our senses, feel if how the eyes are, the ears, the tongue, the skin, the nose. You're in fact investigating or just checking the intelligence of the senses. Are they busy? Are they quiet? Are they dormant? And as the senses are maybe slightly quieter than how we began, now start observing the mind. Is the mind as busy as it was before? Just checking, not rearranging, not micromanaging. But just checking what is the effect of this practice on the mind. And from there, we slowly open our eyes. And if you want to continue, you can continue this exploration. You can disconnect the life. As I'm going to continue talking, you can continue with this exploration. Many times, or sometimes in our practice of pranayama or asana or any technique, there is a tendency of suggesting the students or suggesting the practitioner how to feel. Do you feel calm? Do you feel quiet? Do you feel kind of imposing that the practice preconceived, that this practice is supposed to make me feel like this. So then the mind starts accepting these ideas that I'm supposed to feel calm. What happens if I don't feel calm? I'm feeling agitated. These variables there's a possibility of not feeling calm also. So rather than forcing the students to feel calm, to feel tranquil, to feel relaxed or peaceful, maybe if we could get ourselves or the students to become the observer of whatever variables that are happening. Can you observe what is the effect in the mind? It could be calm, it could be distraction, it could be inertia, it could be multiple, it could be shifting from calmness to a sense of concentration or total absorption. It could be all these variables, because the mind is an organization of these variables. It's like Baskin Robbins, you have all these different flavors, right? And not forcing that this is the only flavor that is going to come in front to the frontal cortex or to the frontal brain, but standing back and just observing all these different flavors that there is a possibility of all these flavors coming. Can we start getting our students or building within ourselves that sense of stepping back and observing whatever information that is going to come from our activity? That idea of stepping back. So hopefully this made some sense. And with the Brahmari part, please share with me your input from this practice, and wishing all of you a beautiful day. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you all for joining me later on as you see this exploration on Brahmari, and my love and respect to Guruji BKS Iyengar on this special day that he had left his physical body, and yet he lives in most of us through his teachings and his aspiration. For me, he's special to me because of his hardship, his hard work, his concentration on the subject, which is what gives me inspiration in my life, that if I could give that kind, or inspire myself in that way to take on to the subject the way that he did, or to a certain extent some amount of inspiration from where he was. Wishing you all a beautiful day and a practice. Oh.